see, dynamic programming is quite a nightmare, right? For all of us, and it's not new. But what if I say you have already used dynamic programming before? Let's go back in time and see how you found out the nth Fibonacci number. I guess all of you have written that code once in your life, right? So let's recollect. In Fibonacci series, an element is obtained by adding the previous two elements. I guess all of you remember this. So the first two elements were initialized using 0 and 1. So the third element could be obtained by adding 0 and 1, which is 1. And then the fourth element is obtained by adding 1 plus 1 equals to 2. Then the fifth element as 3. Then the sixth element as 5. So in our problem, we will find the sixth Fibonacci number, that is 5. So you all must be familiar with this recursive solution, right? So when n equals to 1, as I said, the first value will be returned as 0. And when n equals to 2, the second value will be returned as 1. And if n is neither 1 and 2, then it will return the sum of the previous two numbers, that is Fibonacci n minus 1 plus Fibonacci n minus 2. So we are starting with Fibonacci 6. From fib 6, now since 6 is neither 1 nor 2, so we are going to the last statement, which is fib n minus 1. So fib 5, and then fib 4, and then fib 3, then fib 2. Now when it is fib 2, we are returning 1, because we have said that when n equals to 2, it will return 1. So again, after returning to fib 3, it will again execute the remaining of the last statement, which is fib n minus 2. So from fib 3, it will go to fib 1, and then since n equals to 1, it will return 0, and then finally fib 3 will return 1 to the previous step. Similarly, we will carry on with this entire recursion as seen in this animation. The steps are clearly mentioned in this video. Now if you see, we have tried all possible values, and whenever we try all the possible values, it has to be exponential time, right? So this recursive problem takes exponential time, and also the space complexity is big O of n, as we are considering the recursive stack used here. Now let's get into the real tree. If you see, we have so many overlapping solutions. So it is quite tedious and also time consuming to execute the same subproblems again and again, right? So what we can do, we can execute a subproblem, store the result in some place, and whenever we encounter the same subproblem again, we can use that stored solution, right? So this concept is nothing but dynamic programming. In every DP problem, all the results that are obtained from the intermediate steps are stored in a table called the dynamic table. These results are then used when in future we encounter a similar type of subproblem. These results are stored in such a way so that it can be accessed in constant time without much searching. That's why we use a table or a matrix. Now in this Fibonacci series, you can see we have 6 intermediate steps from fib 1 to fib 6. That's why we will take an array of size 6 so that we can store the results of the 6 intermediate steps. We just saw in the previous recursive solution that the first Fibonacci number is 0, so we put 0 in the first index. For the remaining indices, the result is obtained by adding the previous two results. So we run a loop over here where the value of every DP table I is obtained by DP table I minus 1 and I minus 2. So here you can see how we are reutilizing the intermediate solutions that are stored in the DP table. Since we are trying to find the 6th Fibonacci number, so the ultimate result will be stored in the 5th index position. The time complexity of this algorithm is big O of n because we are running the loop for n minus 3 times. The space complexity is also bigger of n because we are taking extra space to store the intermediate values and the size of the array is n, so space complexity is bigger of n. Can we not reduce the space complexity? If you see closely, we are calculating the current value based on the two previous values. So instead of storing all the values in an array, can we not use the previous two values and then calculate the current value? So in this way, we are storing the current value in a variable called C and the previous two values in variables called A and B. Now the program looks like this. Doesn't this program look familiar? So we are reducing the space complexity from bigger of n to bigger of 1. You basically have to look for two main conditions. Every subproblem leads to a suboptimal result. If we see that in every step we have to move forward using all the previous scenarios that we have calculated, then it is of no use because we cannot store all the values. It is just a wastage of space. We have to check that each step is producing an optimized value or not. And another condition is there should be overlapping subproblems. Many recursive problems will give a scenario where there is no overlapping subproblems. Every problems are unique and you need to solve every problem uniquely. In that case, we shouldn't use DP because storing the problem results makes no sense and it is just a wastage of space. Let's take a problem where I have invited 8 number of guests and I have told my friend to bring chicken strips for them. Now I am a cheapskate and I don't want any strips to get wasted. That's my money and I don't want food to be wasted, okay? So I instructed my friend to bring the maximum number of strips which is either equal to or less than the number of guests. Now when my friend went to the restaurant, he found that they have 4 offers for chicken strip. In one offer they give 1 chicken strip and then there are 3 types of chicken buckets which have 3, 4 and 6 strips. Now to reduce the complexity of the problem, let's assume that the restaurant has only 1 instance of every type of offers. So if my friend chooses 1 chicken bucket of 3 strips, he cannot repeat the same. So how will my friend choose between these offers so that he can bring the maximum number of chicken strips but it is less than the number of guests that are invited? So let's summarize the problem. We will be given an array of positive integers of size n and another positive integer x. Now we have to find the maximum sum that can be obtained by selecting any of the elements only once, but there is one constraint, which is that maximum sum should be less than equals to x. So in this example we have n equals to 4 and x equals to 8. So if we choose 1, 4 and 3, we will get the maximum sum which is equals to 8 and it is less than equals to x. So the maximum sum obtained which is less than equals to x is 8. And this dynamic programming problem is a famous interview question asked in Google. So once you solve this problem, you'll see how easy dynamic programming is and also you will be able to solve one important problem asked in Google. Now let's see the recursive solution. In this solution, x is the sum that yet can be achieved after choosing some elements. And n is the number of elements that are yet to be selected. So when the number of elements becomes 0, so obviously the maximum sum will be nothing but 0. Now if the current element that we are processing is less than the current available sum, then obviously we will not choose that option. In that case, we are just returning the current available sum and then moving to the next element. The third scenario is we have two choices. Either we can choose the element or we can skip the element and move to the next. So what we did, we have added the current element with the current sum and passed the remaining sum for the further steps, or else we have just repeated the previous statement. Now whichever of these choices gives the maximum result will be returned finally. Now let's understand the solution with an illustration. As I said, x is the remaining sum, so when none of the elements are selected, the remaining sum will be 8 and the number of items that are available is equals to 4. So in the root we pass 8 and 4 as x and n. The basic approach of this problem is by executing all possible scenarios. For every element we will either select it or discard it. And then considering both the cases, we will move to the next elements and so on, and ultimately we will try to find out the sum. Now whichever of these gives the maximum sum will be returned as the final sum. Now let's proceed further by selecting 3. So x has decreased to 5 from 8 and also the pointer has shifted to 6. X is less than the current element, so we will obviously not select the element and only we have one choice left. So we move to the next element. X is greater than 4, that's why we have again two choices and we move to the first choice. Now after selecting this element, the sum again reduces to 1 and the current element is 1, so again we have two choices. But since n becomes 0 after this, so we are returning 0. After returning to the previous step, it sees that the second case is still to be executed, so it moves to the second case and then it finds n again equals to 0, so it returns 0. Now the maximum of both the sums are taken and so 1 is returned to the previous step. After returning to the previous step, again the second case has to be executed, so it moves to the second case and then proceeds in the similar way. So finally we are getting the maximum sum as 8. The time complexity of this algorithm is 2 to the power n because we are executing all possible scenarios, checking the sum and then taking the maximum sum out of that. Now every element is having two values, 1 which is considered that the element is selected and 0 which is considered that the element is not selected. So if you find the combination of all possible values, then you will get 2 to the power n values. That's why the time complexity is 2 to the power n. Now since this tree is small, so the number of overlapping solutions is also less, but still we have few overlapping solutions here. But in case the numbers are huge, then you will find many overlapping solutions, so we can easily switch to dynamic programming. Let's now go to the DP solution. In that case, we will need a dynamic table. Why we have taken the matrix size as n plus 1 and x plus 1? It is because we are considering the values from 0 to x and not 1 to x, or 0 to n and not 1 to n. Now it is pretty obvious to understand that when x, that is the required sum, equals to 0, then the maximum sum that is to be returned will be obviously 0. And if n equals to 0, that is there is no element remaining, then obviously the sum will be 0. So we will initialize the first row and the first column with 0. Since all the possible intermediate values of x are aligned column wise, so we have taken j as the current remaining sum, and since all the possible values of n are aligned row wise, so I represents the remaining number of elements. So in that way we have repeated the steps that we did in the recursive solution, but the only difference is that instead of executing the max sum function again and again, we are storing the value in the DP table and then using the DP table values for further steps. Now we will start the loop from I equals to 1 and j equals to 1. I equals to 1 means the first element is considered, that is the element value is 1. Since the j value, that is the current sum value, is equals to 1, so we will consider both the cases and then put the maximum value. Similarly, the whole row follows the same process. Please ignore the arrow that is given in the code. It is by mistaken given in the first statement, but it should be in the else statement. Now we will take the second element, which is 4. Since the current j value is less than 4, so there is no question of two scenarios. Only one scenario is there, that we will discard the value and simply put the value which is at the top of this index position. Similarly, we do for the other values till j is less than equals to 4. Now that j is greater than equals to 4, we consider both the scenarios and fill the maximum value in the current index. Similarly, we perform the same execution for other values, and ultimately the final result is stored in the last index of the matrix. You can see we are running two nested loops. That's why the time complexity of this algorithm is xn. So you see, we just reduce the time complexity from exponential to just xn. So but we have also used extra space of the matrix. That's why the space complexity is xn also. If you check closely, for the execution of every row, we are using only the previous row and nothing else, because n is always decreasing by 1, right? So we can utilize this to decrease the space complexity of this algorithm. What if we take the size of the matrix as 2 cross x, and then when we are executing one row, we will use values from the other row and vice versa. Instead of taking value from I minus 1, we have made it to I minus 1 modulo of 2. Doing so, what happens when we are finding the values of the 0th row, then we are getting the values from the first row, and when we are executing the values of the first row, we are getting the values of the 0th row. So in this way, the space complexity of this algorithm reduces to big O of x, because 2 is a constant value. So this brings us to the end of the discussion on dynamic programming. And this basic structure is more or less same for every dynamic programming problems. It is just that you have to identify whether the problem is having any suboptimal structure or not, and is there any overlapping solutions. So the main attention should be on solving the recursive solution and not the dynamic programming solution, because once you can solve the recursive solution, you can easily convert it to dynamic programming. If you like this video, then please subscribe to our channel and also follow us in Instagram and LinkedIn in order to ask your personal doubts. We will be replying you in 24 hours, and also we will give time to fix your doubt by providing personal sessions.